A vendor calls a woman a bitch and tells her coworker he will never work with her again. So she does some digging, and she discovers he's been stealing tens of thousands of dollars from her company for years. He wanted to never work with her again? She made absolutely sure of it. Let's get into it. This story comes from a woman who was promoted to office manager of a small construction company about 7 years ago. She inherited a disaster. The previous office manager was disorganized, barely kept records, and had no real systems in place. She was brand new to the industry, didn't understand vendors, didn't understand inventory, didn't know how any of it worked. But she was detail-oriented, so she started logging everything. Every delivery, every invoice, every yard of material. She figured if she tracked it all, eventually she'd understand the business. About 2 months into the role, the owner made an announcement. He only wanted to sign checks 1 day a week, Fridays. So she sent out an email to all their vendors explaining the new policy. Any invoice received by Thursday at noon would be paid that Friday. Most vendors were fine with it. A few grumbled, but nobody made a huge deal, except one guy. He complained that it was going to be a headache. She apologized, explained it was company policy, and her hands were tied. He seemed to accept it. Then, 3 or 4 weeks later, he called her in a complete meltdown. He needed his check now. Not tomorrow. Now. She calmly explained that his check would be signed the next day, just like everyone else's. It was Thursday. The policy was clear. He hung up on her. Then he called her coworker, the project manager, and started screaming into the phone. She could hear every word through the thin office walls. And it ended with this: "I won't work with that bitch from here on out. I will only talk with you." Oh, really? That's how it's going to be? Here's the thing. She was detail-oriented, remember? And she had noticed something strange about this vendor for a while. The materials he delivered never seemed to match up. Her system would say they had 100 yards of material in the yard. But then her supervisor would call asking for 3 more truckloads because they were almost out. That's 135 yards of material that should have been there, but wasn't. She had brought it up before. Everyone assumed it was just normal loss. Miscounting, overuse on jobs, measurement errors. Probably a combination of things. She even convinced the owner to implement a new tracking system where crew members logged what they took to each job. But something still didn't add up. After being called a bitch, though, now she had motivation to dig deeper. She called another vendor, one she trusted, and asked if he could deliver the same type of material. She told him what they'd been paying, 45 yards per truckload at a surprisingly low price. The vendor was confused. He said, "How is that guy matching that cost? That price is unbelievably low." Then he asked who the vendor was. When she told him, he laughed. "That guy's truck can't carry more than 20 yards. She didn't believe it at first. But then he asked her a question that changed everything. "Do you get weight receipts?" She had never heard of weight receipts. No one had trained her. But now that he mentioned it, she realized something. Every other vendor included a weight on their invoices. This guy? He just turned in handwritten tickets that said 45 yards. No weight, no verification, just his word. The trusted vendor offered to help. He said he knew the yard where this guy picked up materials. He picked up his own supplies there and was friendly with the staff. He said he'd try to get copies of the actual receipts. She gave him the details of their last delivery, the date, the driver's name, everything. That same day, he texted her photos of the receipts. And there it was. Black and white, the vendor's name, the date, the driver's name, which she hadn't even shared. The timestamps matched the drive time from the yard to their location. Even the security camera footage lined up. He had picked up 20 yards, not 45, 20. He had been charging them for 45 yards and delivering 20, every single time. That's 25 yards of theft per delivery. At 3 deliveries every 2 weeks, it added up fast. She dug through every record she could find. Unfortunately, the previous office manager hadn't kept receipts. All she had were old checks that said, "For material." No quantities, no details. They'd worked with this guy for years, potentially tens of thousands of dollars stolen. But without the old receipts, there wasn't much they could do legally. So she did the next best thing. She stopped ordering from him. Completely. She switched to her trusted vendor, verified his pricing was fair, and never looked back. And that guy who said he'd never work with that bitch again? He got exactly what he asked for. He reached out to her co-worker a few times, wondering why the orders had stopped. Every time, the co-worker told him the same thing. Talk to the office manager. He called her once. She didn't answer. After all, he said he never wanted to talk to her again. She was just honoring his request. Now let's talk about the comments, because Reddit had a lot to say. The top comment was brutal, but fair. Not keeping detailed receipts and checking the amounts vendors claim to be delivering is wild. And she agreed. She explained that she was thrown into the deep end with zero training. The previous office manager barely kept records. She was in her early 20s, learning everything on the fly. But here's where it gets interesting. Multiple people suggested that the previous office manager might have been in on it. One commenter wrote, "She was in on it and probably got a kickback. I've seen this a few times." The original poster admitted she had never even considered that. But then she mentioned something suspicious. The old office manager had an explosive fight with the owner and quit suddenly. She moved on to work for a company they used to do business with. It was awkward whenever they crossed paths. Another commenter put it perfectly. When you're committing crimes, don't commit crimes. Probably best if you're robbing a customer blind that you don't go out of your way to piss off the one person who can most easily catch you. Someone asked if they reported him to the authorities. She said they consulted a lawyer, but without the old receipts, they didn't have enough evidence for a strong case. The guy had no money anyway. Suing him would cost more than they'd ever recover. And then, about 6 months later, he moved back to Mexico. They never heard from him again. One commenter summed it up perfectly. Dude screwed himself out of major money by complaining about pennies. Think about it. He had a good thing going. He was stealing thousands of dollars and no one had caught on. All he had to do was wait one extra day for his check and keep his mouth shut. But he couldn't help himself. He had to throw a tantrum. He had to call her a beach. He had to demand special treatment. And that's what got him caught. The original poster said this experience changed her outlook on people. She used to be trusting, not anymore. She also mentioned that she eventually hired someone to take over the office manager role. When she trained her replacement, she made sure to teach her everything. All the systems, all the red flags, everything she had to learn the hard way. She left the role better than she found it. There's one more detail I love about this story. That trusted vendor, the one who helped her uncover the fraud, he eventually sold his company to a bigger operation. She said it was sad, but that's business. But because of him, she caught a thief. And because of her attention to detail, that company stopped bleeding money. So what's the lesson here? Don't call someone a bitch if they have access to your invoices. Don't steal from a company and then demand special treatment. And if you're going to commit fraud, maybe don't throw a tantrum that draws attention to yourself. He said he'd never work with her again. She made sure of it. So what do you think? Should they have pushed harder to press charges? Do you think the old office manager was in on it? And what would you have done if a vendor called you that? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button. We post new stories every single day, and if you want more satisfying revenge, check out the video on screen right now. I'll see you in the next one.